Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Leadwerks 5 launch party. Leadwerks 5 was released Monday on Steam. It's on the old app ID 251810. So if you have Leadwerks 4 previously, you've got Leadwerks 5 right now on your Steam account. Everybody's got it. So, and if you need to opt into Leadwerks 4 for any reason, you can do so in the Steam properties. But by default, the default version that's installed now is version 5.0. So we're finally here. It's here, and the response has been tremendous. Really, really positive. Really great. Yeah, I just put like a little less than 3 minute long video up on YouTube. Got 10,000 views since Monday, and it just keeps climbing. I posted a few threads on Reddit, and I didn't really think it was like that big of a deal. It's just like something, that I do because it brings in a little bit of views, and it just blew up. Over 100,000 views across Reddit, across like 6 or 7 different threads. And the response has been super, super positive. Yeah, like people love Leadwerks 5. It's great. It's great just to see all the ideas that we've come up, with your help, and just trying to turn it into the best possible user experience. And then, being able to, trying to communicate that in the space of a couple of minutes. I just focused on the top features that I thought would probably be very interesting to a lot of people, such as the material painting, the built-in level design tools, other stuff like that. And the response is tremendous. There's a before we go on, I just want to point something out. Use UTM analytics when you're doing your marketing for your game. Always use UTM analytics, and always link directly to straight to your Steam store page. Usually I link to a news article on our site, and this time I just started linking everything to the Steam store page. So the news article on our website and in the company blog, it's actually got a lot fewer views than it would normally have, and that's because all the traffic is now being directed straight to the Steam store page, along with the UTM analytics parameters based on where it's coming from. But you really need to know where your traffic is coming from, and you never know when things are going to blow up. So I had no idea that we were going to get 100,000 views on Reddit, and so I went back and I edited all those posts and added the UTM info in so that it'll be tracked to Reddit, and I'll always do that in the future now. But definitely use UTM analytics. Here's some of the comments on YouTube right now. Close enough. Welcome back, Hammer Editor. Reminds me of Hammer Editor. Nice layout. Yeah. Been sharing this to everyone. Congrats, Josh. You are bringing your dream and passion to life, and I wish to help spread the word and support you in every way I can. Godspeed, my friend. Well, thank you very much. Sounds too good to be true. Just started game developing. Might switch to this one. Even has C++. Yes, it does. C++ and Lua. Game engine and Lua compiler W win. Yeah, people love Lua. I might use this in the future. This looks sick, and I hope it gets more popular. Well, thank you. Source 2 plus Unity equals this. Yeah, I'll take it. I was watching this being like, okay, this is cool and all, but actually being able to use this through Lua scripting would be crazy, because then I'd be able to take advantage of this. Then literally 4 seconds later, Lua script integration. This is almost too good to be true. So what you're seeing here, it's not just the result of being lucky. It's the result of talking to you guys. And what I see here, forgive the AI art, but this is kind of cool. I like this one. This is from user YUE. He posted this. I think what this really shows is validation of the approach that Leadwerks takes, which is it's this crazy idea that there are customers, and the customer pays money to buy the software, and then they use the software to create the things they want. And everybody's trying to do like anything except that, it seems like. And a lot of people told me that that could never work. But I think this is like validation that the idea works really well. And the advantage I think Leadwerks has is any success that it has is 100% organic. It's all real. There's like 0% astroturfing. It all comes from you, the users. So like one big problem. I mean, I've seen this happen like probably half a dozen times. Like a big company like Microsoft or Autodesk or even Intel tried this. They'll release a game engine or a game development platform of some type. Does anybody remember Project Spark from Microsoft? They had Project Spark. Yeah, nobody. They had something called Project Spark. They had They had XNA was more successful, but they also canned that. Intel had a game engine at one point, and what happens is they're a big company, and so they have a big budget to spend on advertising, so they can make things popular for a short period of time. Like when they release that thing, it's everybody's talking about it for about a week. And then what tends to happen is 6 months later, it just quietly gets shut down and everybody forgets about it. And they have a lot of money, but that money actually, it can be a disadvantage because it kind of masks the real feedback from users. Because the success of Leadwerks has all been built organically by sitting down and talking with you guys and figuring out exactly what works best for you. That means that what you're seeing right now is very strong. It's not going to go away in 6 months because it's all real. It's all 100% genuine. So yeah, it's just, you can see there's like a point where things reach critical mass, and you can see it happening in real time. And it's like the public just decides, like the collective consciousness, like from Stalker, they just decide that, okay, this is something we like. This is something we're going to get behind and support this. We want to see more from this company. We like this. And that's what you're seeing. So it's really been a fantastic week. And I thank you so much for your support and for helping me to create the best possible development system for you. So this December, we'll have the Winter Games Tournament coming back. We have new prizes, new swag. Everybody gets a prize if you participate. And these are just a few of the items. I'll have more information about that later, but that's something coming up during December, early January. Okay, I want to switch gears here for a moment and talk about SCP Containment Breach. So this is a game that was released in 2012, I believe, and all the level design was done with my program, 3D World Studio. I'm holding up the CD case for 3DWS right now. You guys on Discord can't see it right now, but you'll be able to see it on YouTube later. And I want to show you something really cool. If I open it up inside, what's that say? It says Leadwerks. So Containment Breach was made with my level editor, and we've arranged to re-release the original game on Steam, along with, for the first time, a free build of 3D World Studio for the purpose of creating mods for the game. And I plan to have an update for that out in December. If you are interested, then just go to our website, and there's a link in the header for the SCP Containment Breach page, and you can sign up to the mailing list there. And if you sign up to the mailing list, then we are sending testing keys out in batches. And so when the next batch of keys goes out, then you'll receive one if you sign up in the mailing list now. We're also using Leadwerks 5 to develop a new game a new and different game that is also set in the SCP universe. Oh, this is the editor. This is my editor used for the game, and this will be included in the new build of Containment Breach. So this is a screenshot of our new game that we've already posted this one, but this is part of the game. Not all of it, but part of the game takes place within an SCP research and containment facility. And this is one screenshot of some of the kind of light office-y science research areas. This is what we came up with for the theme. We're trying to, come up with something that looks. I mean, there's sort of an established SCP design style, but it's also it's still kind of open-ended, and so we have like quite a lot of creative freedom to create something new, and this is what we came up with. The response was very, very positive, and now for the first time, I am happy to show you another screenshot of a different area that we came up with. The theme, we have another area that's kind of more like dirty, industrial, grungy, and that looks like this. So what we've really learned here, I think, is we put about 80 or 90% of our effort into just getting the floor and the wall materials right. Because if you put a lot of effort into those things, then everything else you add to the scene kind of looks good. It's just make your walls and floors and put a lot of effort into that. And then that kind of establishes the whole visual style of the scene. And then once you've done that, everything else, it's just sort of a matter of add things without breaking the cohesion of the image. So that's kind of what we've learned. We put a lot of effort into our materials, and that seems to be producing very good results that we're very happy with how this looks. It looks SCP, but it's also something new and different. Okay, so Leadwerks Game Engine 5. I've got a lot to talk about. And the way I really think about this is the value of what I provide. It comes down to tools, education, and technology. And no single one of these items stands on its own. In fact, two of them together do not stand on. There's no two of them that stand alone. You have to have all three components. So tools means the editor, basically. So that's all about convenience. Education means the learning materials, particularly the new video tutorials that put a lot of effort into that, and people seem to be taking to those very well. And then technology, of course. Technology, it's important, but it can't really stand on its own without everything else, even though it's the basis of everything else. Okay. So let's talk about the editor. I just want to review a couple of a few of the headlining features that I think really make this editor stand out. And one thing we're doing that's totally unique in 2025 is the built-in level design tools. The solution of just making your level editor in Blender, that doesn't cut it for me. I have done level design for an entire game in 3ds Max, and after that experience, I never want to do that again. Just being able to sketch out your game levels directly in the editor, and then run the game, and then change something and run it again, and just being able to go back and forth between the game and the editor really quickly, and not have to continually flip back and forth between a modeling program and the editor. That's a huge time saver. It used to be that the constructive solid geometry produced results that were sort of inferior to what you could do in a modeling program, because it would just be very blocky geometry with sharp edges. But with this new update, that's no longer the case, because we have things like the edge turn bevels, the vertex material painting, the tessellation and displacement with without any cracks in the seams. Those features have now made it so that what you create in the editor, the CSG modeling tools, have now surpassed what I would be able to do in something like 3ds Max. I mean, you could do the edge turn bevels and stuff, but in our editor, because it's specifically designed just to handle kind of architectural geometry and not do everything, in our editor, it's just a checkbox. Whereas in 3ds Max, it would be extremely tedious to set all that up. And in Leadwerks editor, I can just draw it out very effortlessly and get things done very, very quickly. So that's, and when people say, hey, it looks like Hammer editor, that's kind of what they're saying. So that's been a very, that's been a big hit. The Vertex material painting is just awesome. This is one of my favorite features and people love it. Basically, like every surface in all your level geometry it's like a terrain. You can just paint stuff across it. Here you can see the dirt just like going up the stairs. You can do stuff like that. And of course, if you have a displacement map in the material, then that makes the blending so nice. That's just the normal displacement map, and it just creates all this, like, it really creates like all this unique detail that you don't really see in the original texture, because it's a combination of like the blend value and the displacement value. So it really does a good job of eliminating texture tiling for, this just looks so cool. I don't see any edges here that look identical to each other. When you combine it with tessellation, this is a very nice screenshot from Vida Marcel. You combine this with displacement maps and tessellation, then you can have geometry that's just popping out of the scene. Like this snow. This is like the best snow I've ever seen in a game. This is like, this looks exactly like Tahoe in the springtime. Just that slushy March snow. Here's another thing you can do with it. Different, same tool, different, but a different technique here is just you can add detail along the edges of geometry, and there's just a button that allows you to do this. You can control the width of this this skirt of geometry that goes around the perimeter. So yeah, there's a lot you can do a lot with this feature, and that's been a big hit. We've finally found a way to make tessellation truly useful. We've had tessellation for a long time, since like, I think at least since 2014 or so. But making it useful is another thing, because cracks in tessellated geometry are a big problem. Well, long story short is I found a way to fix that, and it's easy to control. So you can actually make use of tessellation now. Now it is pretty heavy. It is pretty demanding on the GPU, so you do need like a mid to high end GPU to be able to render this stuff. But on a low end GPU, you can just turn it off, and there's no consequences for that. But it just looks, it's a really easy way to get stuff that looks really, really good. Just like, programmer art like this can look really fantastic. Of course, as a game developer myself, it's easy for me to figure out like what steps in our pipeline and our workflow need improvement. And LODs are something that take a long time to create if you're using an external program, just because you're moving a lot of different files around and importing and exporting things. And so having built-in mesh reduction tools in the editor, this is fantastic both for, you can use this to turn, it does a really good job of turning high poly geometry into things that are suitable for real time. And you can also use it to generate LODs very quickly. So something that used to take like several days to switch to create all your LODs, it can be done like in a few minutes. So this is a huge time saver. Okay, I get to come up with the names for these things, and I'm calling this our stochastic vegetation system. And the reason I say that is because it uses a compute shader to dynamically generate all the instances that are in the camera's view. It doesn't actually store the orientation of each of these in memory. It just kind of generates them on the fly. And the physics system and raycasting and other systems, pathfinding, they all use the exact same equation to generate to determine what instances exist in an area. But none of this stuff is actually, there's no place where all of this is stored in memory. So that's why I call it the stochastic vegetation system. And you can also select, you can have like multiple variations of a tree or different plants, and you can just paint it all at once. So it's really, really super convenient and very performant, and it scales very, very well. So it's kind of like, it's similar to the way that the Leadwerks 4 vegetation system works, but it's just taken to the next level, and using a compute shader produces really, really nice results. So that's another feature that I think stands out very nicely. You can see like each of these flowers here, like none of it is stored in memory actually. So you can have huge terrains with millions of instances, and it just doesn't consume any memory. The flow graph editor is another one of those things where I don't understand how anybody can live without this, because I use this all the time in our first person shooter sample. All of the little scripted events that happen in the level are all set up in this system without any programming, and it's just inputs and outputs. And so you can have things like, the player steps into an invisible trigger zone, and then that sets off a sequence of events with timers, and you can really do a lot of dramatic stuff with that. I think the first-person shooter gameplay shows that off very nicely, because there's a lot of like very dramatic scripted events in there, and it's all done without any programming, without any special programming for to make that sequence of events occur. All right, so going on to the education aspect of this, the learning materials, we've got documentation is very good, lots of documentation, and it looks, for what it's worth, I think the design of the pages looks very nice. I mean, it's nice to look at. And then there's just hundreds of code examples in there that you can run, and then I've started putting in a lot of effort into making video tutorials for you, because overwhelmingly, like, that's the format that people wanted to learn with. And right now we have 4 series of videos. They are called the Leadwerks 5 Crash Course, and that's just going through all the features in the editor and giving you an overview of how to use them. And then there's an entire series on Lua programming that just teaches you how Lua programming works with zero background, with the assumption of zero background knowledge. It just teaches you from the very beginning. The 3D spatialization series is very interesting, because what I'm trying to do here is just teach you all the things that I've learned over the years. And in order to write this, I had to kind of like think back in my mind to when I was starting to learn this stuff. Using like Blitz 3D and Dark Basic for the most part. And so it was very interesting to think back and, oh yeah, that's how I learned, what gimbal lock is, and how to do these different things. So that knowledge is very valuable to you. And then finally, the game mechanics series that teaches you in a general way all of the tools that you have to make 3D games. And that's kind of like, these are techniques that you're going to use no matter what kind of game you're making. This will be useful for all of them. I have more ideas. This is over 7 hours of video tutorials right now. I have more ideas on the way for more series of tutorials, but that's what we've got right now. And the response has been very, very good. People are telling me that that they're understanding things that they didn't understand before. So that's very, very nice to hear. Okay. I want to talk about the engine itself now, with a focus on performance, particularly for VR. Now, performance for VR, if you get that right, then to a large extent you have good performance for general 3D. But it's a little bit like optimizing performance for VR is not exactly the same as optimizing performance for low end hardware. Those are a little bit different, and I'll explain why and how. But VR rendering is very demanding because, first of all, you're drawing the scene twice. Second, VR headsets tend to have pretty high refresh rates, between like 90 for the original Vive up to 160. There's probably some that are higher. And if you don't have a fast enough frame rate, well, the punishment is you throw up. You get sick to your stomach because it causes motion sickness. So that's a really big challenge. And the consequences, if you don't have that performance, are pretty bad. A big problem is that most VR apps actually have is they experience really bad bottlenecking on the CPU. And the symptom for this to look out for is if you see low frame rate combined with low GPU utilization. Now you can look at GPU utilization in Windows Task Manager, and there's also some external tools that will give you this number. But if you see that the frame rate is low and at the same time the GPU isn't being utilized very heavily, then what that means is that the application is bottlenecked on the CPU, and that situation is it's sometimes called GPU starvation. Now, what Leadwerks 5 does is it simply removes this bottleneck. There's a really good series of talks called AZDO. That stands for Approaching Zero Driver Overhead. And all I did is I took basically those principles and I put them into practice and I expanded on them greatly. And mostly it's just a matter of designing something specifically for the thing that I'm trying to do, which is relieve that CPU overhead. So this is a great illustration of the problem. You have one CPU core that's working as fast as it can. All your other CPU cores are standing around idly, and your GPU is just sitting there doing nothing. This is the problem of GPU starvation. This is exactly what's going on your computer. If you see low frame rate and low GPU utilization, just remember this picture because this is exactly what's happening. So to solve this problem, I started with an analysis of the hardware. One thing I noticed was that the GPU processing core counts have increased over the last decade. They've increased about 10 times. But at the same time, memory speed has only increased 3 times. So that means that our performance relative to our memory speed is a lot faster now. And that means that a rendering architecture that was designed a decade ago or longer it's going to tend to hit different bottlenecks than a rendering architecture that's designed today, or than when it's running on today's hardware. So a different architecture is really needed. Another thing I noticed is we can much more easily now do complex shader logic, things like branching if statements, variable length for loops. And these things are much easier to do on today's hardware. That used to be like a variable length for loop. That was not something you wanted to do back around 2014 or so. So those are some things that I noticed. So, the hardware is very different today, and so a different architecture is needed. So here's the core counts for some NVIDIA GPUs between 2008 and 2018. You can see that goes up 10 times. Here's the memory speed on the same cards. It only goes up 3 times. Interesting. So the sort of the directives that I came up with to guide this process were I wanted to reduce memory bandwidth because that's now going to be a big bottleneck. So we use a lot of compressed data of various types. If there's anything we can do to compress data in any way, then we use that. Half floats are one example of that. Just anything that we can do to minimize the amount of data being sent to the GPU is good. We tend to store more data persistently in video memory, and that way it's just already in memory. We don't have to continuously send it over the PCI bridge to the GPU. And we try to update data less frequently whenever possible. And the whole goal here is to just minimize memory bandwidth, and at the same time try to prevent that situation of GPU starvation by making that rendering thread very, very super efficient. To do this, I came up with a multi-threaded architecture that looks like this. The logic thread, this is where all your video game code lives. This is the thread that you actually interact with, and you've got a full 16 milliseconds for your code to execute on that. Animation is done on a separate thread or multiple separate threads, and the reason for this is because I like zombie games. I wanted to be able to make Left 4 Dead with Leadwerks 5, and you can without any special optimization, no special tricks. Like the default animation system will support hundreds or thousands of animated characters with no problem. And it'll just, if it needs more threads, it'll just dynamically allocate more threads for that purpose. Up until it runs out of, up until it's running using all of your CPU threads, if you have enough characters and it needs that much. The rendering thread, that can run at a different frame rate, or at a different frequency than the logic thread. The culling is done on a separate thread that can be done on a slightly slower frequency, and there's really no downside to that. And then finally, data is passed off to the GPU, and there is some latency between the logic thread and the rendering thread, but it doesn't really matter because the only latency that really matters is what's connected to your head and your hands. So all the VR code lives in the rendering thread, and before the renderer starts rendering a new frame, the very last thing it does is it checks with the VR headset to retrieve the last known position and orientation of the user's headset, and so that makes it very, very super efficient. Okay, so the results of this, to my surprise, when I started this out, I thought I would get maybe 2 or 3 times faster performance. It turns out when you eliminate that GPU starvation and eliminate that bottleneck, you don't get like 2 or 3 times faster performance. You get like 10 times faster performance, or in some cases a lot more. These are real numbers. You can get these on our GitHub repository at leadwerks.com or github.com/leadwerks/benchmarks. And this is real. You can run this on your own computer. This is tested on a GeForce 1080. And we have these 4 tests. And the tests are very simple because I wanted to make sure that we were creating the exact same thing in all of the different engines I was testing with. And at the same time, I only wanted to test one aspect of the rendering pipeline at a time. I didn't want to test multiple things at the same time because that would mask the results. So the instance geometry test, all this does is it just places like 32,000 boxes that are all instances of a single box. And it just places them in the scene, and they're all in the view. So it's kind of a worst case scenario for the frustum culling, because you have all the overhead of the culling system, but it provides zero benefit because nothing is culled. And with Leadwerks 4, the GPU utilization was 8%, frame rate was 52, not very good. So that's GPU starvation. With Unity, both in DX11 and Vulkan, it makes no difference. GPU utilization is 4%, frame rate is 40 frames per second. Again, GPU starvation. With Leadwerks 5, the GPU utilization is 95%, and the frame rate is 1200. The animation test, like I said, I like zombie games. Um, Leadwerks 5 outperforms Leadwerks 4 by a factor of 200 times, and in this test, Leadwerks 5 outperforms Unity by 18 times. In this test, the GPU utilization for Leadwerks 4 is 1%, and the frame rate is 5 frames per second. I think this is placing like 1,000 or 1024 animated characters in the scene and just independently animating them. Unity with DX11 and Vulkan, it's about the same. 45% GPU utilization. Frame rate is 62, 64. So again, there's that situation of GPU starvation. And then with Leadwerks 5, the GPU utilization is 96%, and the frame rate is over 1,000. So that's the power of eliminating bottlenecks. So the answer is yes, you can make Left 4 Dead with Leadwerks 5. So somebody please make it because I want to play it. Okay, so I wanted to do a test of the lighting system. The Leadwerks 4 lighting system actually did surprisingly well in this test. I mean, relatively, it's still, half the speed, but the GPU utilization in Leadwerks 4 was about 50%, frame rate about 700 frames per second. Unity had about a 30% GPU utilization, frame rate of 90 and 74 frames per second. Leadwerks 5 GPU utilization is 96. Frame rate is 1400. So again, that's the power of eliminating that bottleneck. It's not magic. It's just, we designed something specifically created for the problem that we're trying to solve. And that's what happens when you do that. And now finally, the most interesting one is the unique geometry test. This is a bunch of boxes again, but the difference here is, I think there's only 4,000 of them. The difference here is that each one of these is unique. They are not instanced. Each box is a different mesh. And so it's just a very simple renderer would just go through and have one draw call for every single one of these. Leadwerks 5 has some clever tricks to make batches of batches, basically. And so this is one rendering command to draw all of these different batches. And this is actually the one test that I feel is the most representative of what you will see in a complex scene with many different types of objects. So the Leadwerks 4 GPU utilization is 10%. The frame rate is 49. In Unity, the GPU utilization with both DX11 and Vulkan is about the same, about 5%. Frame rate is 2 frames per second. Not great. Leadwerks 5, we get rid of that bottleneck. GPU utilization is 63%, and the frame rate is over 6,000. Now at that incredible frame rate, I don't know if GPU utilization is even a meaningful metric anymore because there's probably some kind of there's probably other internal things in the GPU that are limiting it at this point. When you're at 6,000 frames per second, it's like it's each one of those frames is such a tiny amount of time that it's very hard to make any meaningful judgment about the GPU utilization at that point. But very interesting results. So what does this mean in practical terms for VR and for general 3D applications? Well, for one thing, CAD models that have many articulated sub-objects will render very, very fast. And that's best represented by this test of unique geometry. Crowds of animated models will render fast, like, I don't know, something like zombies, for example. Now, this doesn't mean that you can make a VR game and run it on a 1060 and expect it to run very fast, because your pixel shader is still going to be the limiting step most of the time. You're still going to need a good GPU if you're doing high definition VR. I think for all the engines, really, like the vertex limit is going to probably be about the same on all engines. I don't think there'll be a huge difference there. So what this does is it eliminates that CPU bottleneck so that your game is now is just hardware limited. It's no longer being artificially held back. Okay. So what are the next steps here? I want to revise some of the internal design of the rendering architecture. The result of this will be faster performance in some situations. It'll make the creation of custom shaders a bit easier because what I plan on doing is going to it's going to separate the mesh drawing and the lighting code a little bit better. It'll make it easier for me to implement additional shader effects that I have planned in the future. And this will just, overall, this is going to result in reduced internal complexity in the engine, which is important because it just makes it more maintainable, and it gives us a better foundation to build all the stuff that I have planned in the future for Leadwerks 5 and beyond. Our VR implementation is powered with OpenVR. I plan to switch this to OpenXR simply because, I mean, there's really no downside to OpenVR, but there's a few headsets, some of the more rare and headsets that are a little bit obscure are supported with OpenXR. And then finally, I believe that this will lead to improved support for low-end hardware. One thing that's going to be important going forward is I want to optimize things for older hardware. One way to do this is through a hybrid dynamic baked lighting system. Because, let's see, do I have that slide? Okay, I missed the slide, but about 55% of Steam users are using old or are using hardware from like 10 years ago. About 55% of Steam users have a GPU that's older or slower than a GeForce 1080. That's the majority of people. In many cases, people are still using the same computers that they were using 10 years ago. They're just not buying new computers. If they do buy new computers or new graphics cards, overwhelmingly, like, people have been pushed into the low end of the market. So and I don't blame them. I don't blame them because everybody's getting gouged on GPUs and now on RAM. So it's not surprising, but I want our new SCP game to be able to run on as much hardware. I want it to run fast and look great on everybody's computer. And so, optimizing the engine to support the hardware that gamers actually have, that's going to be a high priority in the future. And one more thing. I'm going to let my friend Gabe introduce this concept because there's something that a lot of people have been asking for. More than I've ever seen in my life. A lot of people are asking for support for this. And I'll let my friend Gabe explain this.
Totally in favor of disrupting the traditional consoles going forward, but can you make any comment on Valve's role on the Linux desktop, particularly Ubuntu?
That sounds like a landmine. We're big fans of Linux. Linux is, great. We're doing more and more of our own development on it, and we do expect that for a lot of customers, migrating Linux onto their desktops or the laptops will make more and more sense as we continue on in our current operating system trajectories.
Thanks.
Okay, so what Gabe did not say is that Valve would go on to develop Proton and technologies like FEX that are turning Linux into a very serious development platform. And Yeah, it really seems like, for the first time, it really seems like this might actually be Microsoft losing their dominance of the PC. It actually looks like that this might be happening. It seems to be happening right now. Because there's just been more interest in Linux than any time I've ever seen before. So Leadwerks 4, of course, it did run on Linux, and it will still continue to, with the caveat that it has to be Ubuntu 16.04 or a similar distro. What happened is around 2017, most of the distros stopped including the 32-bit libraries with the operating system, and so that introduced a lot of incompatibility with our editor, which was written in a programming language. This was written in Mark Sibley's programming language, Blitzmax, and it's a great language, and it allowed me to get a lot done very quickly. But it only had a 32-bit compiler. For Windows, that wasn't such a problem, but for Linux, that was a huge problem. And so that introduced a lot of incompatibility with Leadwerks 4. Additionally, I was using Max GUI for the user interface, which wasn't great. I mean, I put a ton of time into it, but the end result was kind of glitchy, and it doesn't look that great. The solution to this is, let's see. So Leadwerks 5 solves these problems because the editor is written in C++, and so we just do 64-bit builds now. So that is a total non-issue. I just took the bull by the horns and I wrote my own GUI toolkit, and that was such a good decision because it looks great and it performs really great, and I have total control over it, and it does everything I want. And we have like so few, and we've probably only had we've had probably like less than 10 bug reports for the GUI system total. And it does run on Linux already. There's something called Ultra App Kit that we have for free on Steam, and it's the GUI toolkit just by itself as a programming library, and you can use that right now for free to make cross-platform applications that run on Windows, Linux, and Mac. And they look the same on each operating system, and they work great, and they run great. So, yeah, that's really, really fantastic. The hardest remaining part is actually going to be the Scintilla-based IDE, converting that into Linux, because a lot of that code is Windows specific. So I don't think it's going to be terribly. I'm not worried about it being too difficult. But it is going to be a lot of work, and there's always like little things that come up that, I don't think anything's going to be a showstopper. I just think it's going to be a lot of labor to make this happen. So that's Leadwerks for Linux. That's all I have to say at this time. No announcements yet, but yeah, people are asking for it, and I'm listening. So before we go on, I want to give a thanks to both Pedrito and Primar Rus. They gave us reviews for Leadwerks. They added their review for Leadwerks on Steam this week. I appreciate the thumbs up. That really helps. And also, Marek just gave us a server boost for Discord this morning. So I'm gonna see what we can do to upgrade the server. We have the lead tag that you can add to your name now if you want to help advertise the server. Maybe we'll get some other upgrades on the server. We'll see. I'll see what we can. I'll take a look and see what we can do. Okay, so all right, that's all I've got, and now I'll open it up for just general comments and discussion. Let's flip back to Discord. Linux work. Linux works. Got some new swag. And then you open this up, and it's a little wooden You can see this in the video on YouTube when it ships. It's a little wooden USB key. And then got this one, which is really nice. I like them both. I don't know which one I like better. Let me see. This one, this box got kind of smashed up in the during shipping, and then you open it up, and it's got this really nice USB drive. And then stickers, of course. This is one of the stickers. I have some more on the way. Okay, question? Any more questions, comments, etc.? What's the plan with the education part? Good question, actually. I want to do. I have ideas for some more video tutorial series. One would be, it'd be great to have a series that comes right after the crash course, and that would be sort of focusing on setting up gameplay without code, just using the stock scripts and using the flow graph to set up different interactions. I think that would be really helpful for people. And for some people, like that might be as far as they go. Some people might just make games without any programming at all. And that's a perfectly viable path. I mean, you're not going to be able to do everything that way, but you can do a surprising amount without any code at all. I'd also like to have a series on game physics, just going into a lot of detail with the physics system, because that's worth learning about. And then another tutorial series on visual effects. Basically, take that top-down shooter example that we have at the end of the game mechanics series. Take that and then make a tutorial series that takes that and turns it into something that doesn't just look like programmer art. So like that could include stuff like animation, particles, camera shake effects. Not sure yet. I'm still like thinking of ideas for that. And then also we have a commercial license for the Steam PC Cafe program now. If you're running the PC Cafe program in your school or library or university or whatever, that's available on Steam right now. It's been released. And so I'm actually interested in making a push to get this into schools because the people are telling me that the educational materials are very helpful to them. And teaching students how to program with C++ and Lua, you're not just teaching them to be customers, you're teaching them actual like computer science skills. So yeah, that's available. The commercial license is available right now on Steam, and it's basically like a floating point license for the school's network. We consider for runtime support Jenga FX, entertainment particles, flipbook. I'm interested in those techniques. I think you brought that up last week, and it looks very good. Again, there's an infinite number of ways I could spend my time. I have to do the thing that's going to produce the strongest result the fastest, but that's definitely something that's on my radar. Okay, so if there are no other questions from everybody, now's actually normally I don't ask you guys to spread the word, but now's actually a good time to do it because we're popular and cool right now. And that's when you want to, put the push on the gas pedal is when you're popular. So share the YouTube video with your friends. It's getting a lot of views. Reddit, we've gotten a huge amount. We've gotten over 100,000 views on Reddit. And I have a feeling there might be some other major videos going up this weekend. We'll see. It's not up to me, but I think we'll probably see some news articles and other stuff soon. So that's also really great. So Yeah, with that, thank you all for joining. Have a great weekend, and let me know if you have any questions. I am reading all your suggestions, and we've had a few bug reports just for minor stuff over the weekend, and getting those fixed quickly will be a high priority. But really, really want to thank you guys for your support and participation. Um, Thank you for Thank you for helping me to just design the entire workflow and figure out what features are important and what kind of things should be focused on. Just helping me to design something that helps you produce games efficiently. That's really been a really fantastic experience during the beta phase, and I really appreciate everyone's participation in helping to co-design Leadwerks 5 and just make it into the best possible development platform for you that is possible. So